Danny Meyer, and I am the CEO of the Union Square Hospitality Group in New York City. I think the key has been to start every restaurant with a sharp point of view. So we go into each restaurant knowing what it is we're trying to say. It's like writing a story. But then here's where it's different from a story. It's a highly interactive experience. And so the people who come to the restaurant may like part of your original point of view, but they may want you to do things a little bit differently. And so then it really becomes an ongoing dialogue where you're listening to how the people who like your restaurant would like it even more if only you shifted a little bit. And so you're having a dialogue with your guests, you're having a dialogue with your staff. I think it's really important to keep the staff as engaged as possible, because at the end of the day, the restaurant itself is an inanimate object, and it's the human beings who work there that are the reason that people like you either want to come back or not. And there's a fine line. You know, I'm knocking on wood right now, but in 24 years, I've never had the experience of closing a restaurant. And the real fine line is that you've got to give people enough of the things they returned for, but you've got to give people enough new things so they'll come back as well. And if you take away all the reasons that they came back, they may not want to return. But if you don't change things, they may not want to return. So there's the art. What any of the new media is actually very old, which is that it's human nature to want to recommend things to people you like, and to want to denigrate things to people you like that you didn't like. I think that's always been human nature. We used to call it word of mouth. Now it's word of Yelp or word of Twitter or whatever. And so it's really not a new thing. But I think that anyone who has any kind of a business who's not paying attention to what the world or what their customers are saying is making a mistake. Now, it's equally important that if you're a radio, you want to have antenna that are sharp enough to pick up the stuff that's out there. But if your antenna are so sensitive that they pick up everything, you're going to pick up static as well that may not be particularly useful. So it's such a critical thing to learn to tune in the constructive stuff and tune out the stuff that's just hurtful. The restaurant will be 11 years old this year. And I think the secret of any restaurant is you've just got to stick at it. You've got to stick to the things that you believe in, and you've got to listen really carefully. In the case of 11 Madison Park, we listened very, very carefully, and we realized that our early point of view wasn't necessarily on the money. Rather than people using it when we first opened it as a brasserie, which is pretty much what I had envisioned it as, they said, instead of saying this is the best brasserie food I've ever had in my life, which it would have been if they wanted to use it as a brasserie, they said, this food doesn't seem to be stacking up against this gorgeous decor. And so in order to make 11 Madison Park into a restaurant that could fulfill its greatest potential, we had to not only listen to our guests, but we had to listen to the architecture, because the architecture, the bones of that building are not going to change. It's a gorgeous, beautiful space with, light streaming in. And so I feel like we finally gave the space, the restaurant, it deserved. I moved to New York because I couldn't get it out of my system. I'm a Midwesterner, and I really thought that I'd end up maybe in Chicago. I felt like St. Louis might not be quite big enough for me, but I'd gone to school in Connecticut at Trinity College, and I spent a lot of my weekends down in the city, just eating the city, literally. I went to the horse races, I would go to Broadway shows, I'd go to watch jazz, restaurants obviously, and I just liked looking at people. I liked the jolt of energy that I got when I drove off the FDR Drive into the city for the first time. which I presume is still there, but now that it's part of me, I don't feel it quite to the same degree, but I could literally feel a jolt. And I just, I'm curious. I like to look at how any block on the street can change literally from day to day. Storefront can change. You can look up and see, windows up above that have changed. The kind of human beings that are, seemingly from every corner of the earth who have something to say and something to express are here. And that's what I wanted when I first came to New York. I didn't think I would probably be here for more than a year, but 1 year has now turned into a quarter of a century, and I'm still here. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I basically have, two incredibly fond memories of being a teenager there as soon as I could get the keys to my parents' car. One was going to Ted Drew's for frozen custard, and one was going to Steak and Shake, where back in those days they had curbside service. So, you would have, after a party, you'd go to Steak and Shake, or after going to hear a rock concert, you'd go to Steak and Shake. And it was, it dawned on me when we had an opportunity to create a reason for people to use this beautiful park, Madison Square Park, morning, noon, and night, and that makes a park safer when people are using it. That in New York, where we don't have an automobile culture necessarily, we still have reasons that human beings want to get together. And so, whereas these burger and shake stands, from the 1950s, 1960s, even the 1970s, really grew up in areas where people used their cars and they would hang out in the parking lot. We said, well, why can't a parking lot be a park? And that's how it came to be. And tell you what, we envisioned or we dreamed of what it could be, but never imagined that people would fall in love to the degree that they have. Shack burger. But I'll eat almost anything on the menu. It's not really a very long menu. I mean, I'm very happy getting a Chicago dog. I love the bird dog, which is the chicken bratwurst. I'm in total love with the Schroomburger. And my favorite custard of all, which I just ask people to make for me, and sometimes it's on the menu, is the just getting vanilla custard with coffee in it. There's no one that I look to now for any one thing, but there are definitely people, sadly many of them are no longer living, that I think about when I get to a crossroads. I think about my dad, who entirely gave me my love for food and wine and, showing people a good time. He had been in the travel business, and he even had a couple restaurants before he died. I think of my maternal grandfather, who really helped to show me that it's reason enough to invest in your community because it's the right thing to do, but also that it's good business to do that. And from a professional restaurant standpoint, I think of another person who passed away a few years ago from Paris named Jean-Claude Vrinat, who ran a fantastic restaurant called Taillevent. And he really showed me that having a really, really refined restaurant did not need to be exclusive from having a good sense of humor, that you could have fun taking service seriously. Oh boy, I'd probably think about my 21st birthday at a trattoria in Rome. And it was a simple meal, but it was great. The antipasto was perfect. The spaghetti alla carbonara was right on the money. Liters and liters of cheap red wine that was just fine. Vitello alla bolognese was just perfect. For me, a great meal has as much to do with the people I'm with and the comfort that I feel in the setting. The food has to be absolutely delicious, but I think that sometimes people put too much emphasis on always having to find the best. If I hadn't answered that particular meal in Rome, the other place I was thinking about would be just getting a great pizza. I could have a sausage and mushroom pizza at, one of a handful of places in New Haven, Connecticut. and be just as happy as a clam, no pun intended. I don't think it's your job to look smart when you go to a restaurant. I think you should be with the person you're with. If you're a solo diner, that's also good. Then be with yourself, enjoy the place. But I think a restaurant that forces you to look a certain way or act a certain way for their benefit is automatically making a mistake, because they're not letting you be you, and they're not on your side, really. So actually, one of the first things that I would gauge when I go to any restaurant is, do I feel at home here? Because there's no law that says I have to go to this restaurant. There's no law that says I have to spend my hard-earned money at this restaurant. If I've heard great things about a restaurant from a friend, that's helpful, because if it's a friend, then they presumably know me, and they're going to know that this kind of place is going to make me feel good or not. But my rule number one is, you're there for yourself. You're not there for me when you go to a restaurant. I don't really pay too much attention to the notion of what night I'm ordering something. I would make one distinction. If New York City or anywhere has been in the midst of a 2 or 3 week heat wave in the middle of summer, probably not a great time to get oysters, which just, not that they're going to be bad for you necessarily, but they just won't taste good. And at the end of the day, when you go out to a restaurant, you're buying an opportunity to take time off to restore yourself. That's what the word restaurant comes from. But you're also buying pleasure. You should be buying pleasure. I think that good restaurants today should totally be able to keep fresh fish fresh in their refrigeration system, regardless of whether the delivery came in today or yesterday or the day before. And the fact of the matter is, very few pieces of fish that any of us eat were swimming yesterday anyway. We would all like to believe that, but a lot of the big fishing boats that go out sometimes are out for a week before the fish comes back. I think that, like anything else in life, every coin has two sides to it. And I think that the good thing about more and more food on television is that we're now in a country where good ingredients and good cooking and good recipes are not a foreign concept to people. People are much, much more aware of the role that food can play at the table. And I think that young people watch the Food Network. Last time I checked, it's rated G. Most of the stories have a happy ending. And, I think that to the degree that Julia Child was able to make an impact on a whole generation of people when she was the only game in town, I think the Food Network is, believe it or not, having an even bigger impact on even more people. And so I think that from the standpoint of being a restaurateur, it's a good thing, because more and more people are interested and follow what's happening in the food scene. The other side of the coin is that the restaurant business is not a sitcom, and it's not a reality TV show. It's a real day-to-day, persistent journey about delivering pleasure for other people. And it's a very, very humble pursuit. And I think that the part of the TV aspect of food that may be less helpful is that what plays well on TV is sometimes brashness as opposed to humility. Serving other people is a humble act. It's the belief that if I do something for you, that's going to make me feel better. Sometimes that's not what's portrayed on TV. It's, cursing and tattoos and brashness, which is fine, but that's not really what the pleasure of the table is all about. No, I think we'll see some changes, and I think we always have. One of the things that's amazing about my industry is that there's just this incredible sense that there's always going to be a tomorrow. And, I've now been in business long enough to have seen 4 pretty serious recessions, and fortunately so far to have survived them all. But it's like a mean, nasty wind that blows a heck of a lot of the leaves off the trees. What I find amazing about my colleagues, there's this never say die entrepreneurial spirit, and behind every leaf that falls off, there's a new bud that blooms and blossoms. What's fascinating is to see what each recession generates in terms of the next generation of restaurants. I'll never forget all the way back in 1991, 1992, when there was a recession connected with the Gulf War. Everybody was saying back then, this is the end of fine dining, which was totally not true. There was a period during which people were eating more casually, but we have long since passed the point as a country where people are not going to go backwards in terms of the quality of what they eat. No one's going to say, oh, it's a recession, now I want to eat food that doesn't taste good. What they might say is, okay, I don't want to spend as much money, or I don't have as much time, or I don't want to pay extra for all the trappings of cushy chairs and beautiful art on the walls. And that type of thing does come and go. The restaurant that will be opening this fall, which will be called Maialino, based on my love for Rome, is without question a recession baby. It's going to be a restaurant that I would hope that people could frequent even in a recession. That won't put it out of business, during a good economy. But what I also find fascinating, Blue Smoke, which is our barbecue restaurant that has thrived throughout this whole recession, was born just a handful of months after 9/11, and it was born in a recession, 2002. And sometimes the restaurants the buds, the blossoms that come to life during a recession are some of the most long-lived as a result of that. A trattoria in Rome, there are thousands of them, and nobody goes there to find cutting edge. Nobody goes there only for special occasions. What distinguishes one trattoria from the next is the one that you go to the most frequently. So there are restaurants that are created really for the purpose of allowing people to be with people and to break bread without a lot of the trappings, without paying extra money for the fancy plates and the expensive furnishings in the restaurant. And it's really more about the soul of eating well than it is of the refined restaurant experience. I don't believe that the refined restaurant experience ever thrives as much in a deep recession, but I also believe that there's always going to be a place, for a restaurant that just gives you that extra sense that you took a trip somewhere. We have a restaurant, 11 Madison Park, that just got 4 stars from the New York Times, and by all rights, it should not be doing well in a recession, and it's doing better now than ever. I think the things that keep me up at night are the responsibility that I feel towards the people who signed up to work with me. As we grow as an organization, it's really growing how many human beings are producing our restaurants. If you go to Union Square Cafe or Tabla or Shake Shack or the Modern tonight, and you have any kind of experience, I hope it'll be a great one, but that experience will be a direct result of the performance of the human beings who work there. And their performance will be a direct result of how happy they are working there and how productive they feel and how jazzed they feel in terms of the colleagues that they work with, how well we've helped them learn and prepare for their job. And when we let our own employees down in any way, shape, or form, that keeps me up at night because I know that that's going to immediately translate to our employees letting down our guests.